Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two, and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are finishing up Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix. So Taylor, I feel like the second half of this book gave us the real horror in Horrorstör.
Yeah, I feel like if I had to sum it up by emojis, it was kind of like laughing crying emojis for the first half and then just like skulls and tombstones for the second half. It got very serious very quickly.
It did, yeah. I thought the same thing of it got serious, but there were definitely still moments throughout where I was like, okay, there's still the underlying, capitalism bad undertone, and also just like random silly comments. Like one where this might have been still closer to the first part of this half. Amy is like, oh my god, I'm gonna vomit, and Basil's like, not on the stock. So there's still like lines like that are just like spread throughout where you're like, okay, there's still some silliness, still some satire, but otherwise it did feel more like, yes, just like an actual serious horror book for the second half.
And I'll say, like, to that, I didn't like hate it, obviously, but it did feel a little bit like a Saw movie, and I just don't like those.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. It was a lot happening.
It does get detailed in some moments. Probably many of them, which I won't talk about because I wanted to gloss over those sorts of things, but it does get graphic.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say up front is we spoke a lot of all of kind of the main characters in the first episode, but two of them don't get very much featured at all in the second half, and that's Matt and Trinity. They're not gone totally, but they're not as present as I thought they were going to be. I guess Ruth Ann too, but I feel like she at least gets some FaceTime and an ending, right? So Matt and Trinity felt very much secondary in the second half.
Yeah, it was slightly dissatisfying kind of just having half of the cast, more than half the cast, disappear.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to kind of just become about Amy and Basil alone. I kind of figured they're maybe the most important characters, sure. I just didn't think it'd be just them. Yeah,
because I do think there's like the interesting opportunity of how these different people react to what's happening, right? Like, we were kind of talking about Matt as the realist, seeing how far he would push that, but like that doesn't really get to happen at all. But also because of the capitalism angle, like how are they reacting to this mirroring of what they live through every day in the most extreme way, obviously, but like I don't know, none of them ever get to kind of come to terms with that kind of stuff. It's like good that Amy does, I guess, but like her and Basil are kind of the most simple figures within this system. Like Amy is like the quiet quitter basically, right? And then Basil's the one that buys into it entirely. It's like, I don't know, there's a little bit more nuance you could have had with the other characters, I think.
That's a good point. They're kind of the two ends of the spectrum. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll get into it and flesh out some of the details on these characters and how we feel about the book as we get into it. So where we leave off, well, I don't even know if this is where we leave off, but one of the early things that happens in this half of the book is the beehive officially opens through the fake door in the wall, which I just have to say, got it. And Basil, Matt, and Amy walk in together. I thought the fact that Trinity and Ruth Ann didn't walk in was going to matter. Speaking of these side characters, like 3 of them walk in, maybe the other 2 are going to like get away free, but that's not what happens. And as they walk in, Matt is like, we have to stick together, while Amy is like, I want to leave. And I think this is one thing that sometimes bothers me in horror. Not that it's like a huge issue. It bothers me about characters in horror when they do this, where they're like, I've decided that there is one correct way to approach this, and I'm sticking to my guns. And for Matt, that was like, we have to stick together. I don't care that Basil is basically walking ahead without us, whether or not we come with him. Like, he's the one who decided to walk in. And Matt's like, nope, we got to stick together. Like, I'm following him. I don't care if it's dangerous. And then Amy's like, well, fuck, now I'm going to be alone if I don't follow them. So it just kind of like, Basil walking in there forces everybody else along. It's not like a choice. And maybe this too just comes to the fact that I think Matt doesn't have a lot of individual thoughts. I think he's easily swept up in the crowd. And I think that's even true of his like anti-establishment vibe. So it just kind of forces the story to move along instead of having them decide like this is the right choice.
Yeah, which I think does still work because the first half of this book does a lot of that kind of stuff where like characters are pushed into weird situations that don't necessarily make sense. Like it's the ridiculousness of it. So it still works
exactly.
in this situation, but it is silly because they're like, we need to stay with the light. Meanwhile, Matt, to my knowledge, still has his phone, so it's not like they're without light. So it is kind of silly, but it's just continual that Amy will say something and nobody will listen to her. So
that's true too. Yeah. So yeah, I say this just to say, like, this feels like a horror thing. Not that this is like a bad criticism of, like, this is just like, why this is one of those moments where you're yelling at the screen, like, why would you choose this, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's Basil in particular is just like, the doors are fake and you're seeing this weird ass hallway. Like, why would you ever go through?
He uses some of my favorite bit of what I call man logic, where Amy's like, isn't it kind of crazy that this hallway exists? Like, this hallway shouldn't exist. And he's like, of course it exists. We're standing in it.
I mean, he's right, but
like, it's obviously more complicated than that, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, of course, like, this is the level he's working on, so it makes sense, but stupid.
Yeah, it's the same when Carl, like, disappears. He's like, oh, thank God Carl's still alive. And I'm like, sir, you saw his neck was slashed by a handcuff. Like, what do you mean he's still alive?
He's just living in his own world. I mean, this is Basil's character of being so steeped in systems and structure that he can't see outside of them, right? Like, oh, things are just logical, everything's structured like in this kind of hierarchical way. Like, I understand how these systems work because I'm a professional. Mm-hmm. So when things don't line up to that, he has to like come up with a structured explanation for it. I guess it's not dissimilar from Matt, but Matt's is unstructured.
Right. Yeah. And that does catch Basil later, I think. I can't remember if it happens in this moment or after the chair situation, where Amy wants to leave and he wants to find Carl, I think. And it's like Basil has a responsibility to customers, but also to his staff. There's like no order to those things within that structure, so he has a tough time making that decision.
It breaks him a little bit.
It does, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I guess the last thing in this section is we see our first set of zombies. I'm calling them zombies. The book does not call them zombies, but they are undead at the least. So we see these undead prisoners approach, and this is kind of where all hell breaks loose. So we lose track of Matt and Basil. It's the last time we see Matt in person, and we kind of shift into more of the horrors of the book.
Yeah, I guess it's also like good to point out that they have less individualism. I don't know if that grammatically made sense what I just said, but like they're described as like faceless and they kind of just listen to him, and like penitence is like an entity rather than individual people. So like there is something zombie like about their behavior.
Yeah, they kind of move as an army, right? They're described as an army kind of. So
yeah, and even when they're moving furniture for some reason, I mean they're working, right? I guess is the point, but there's like a zombiness to that kind of action.
Yeah, which I guess makes sense too if the whole criticism is on capitalism to refer to workers and prisoners both in a way as a sort of zombie.
Mm-hmm. Though again, that word does not come up in the book.
No.
But it's a good way to think of them, I guess.
Yeah, kind of the way we talked about cogs, right? Like last episode, we were like, oh, like they're kind of being described as cogs, but they never get actually described as cogs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these non-zombies strap Amy to the tranquilizing chair from when Josiah kind of says what all of their cures should be. So she's strapped in, and Josiah comes around and kind of explains to Amy what he didn't explain before about what he sees as her illnesses, saying that she's willing but weak. So kind of honestly not too dissimilar from what Basil says about her, of like, oh, I see the sort of leadership management potential in you, but I don't really see the drive to like get there and get the thing done. And Amy like fully agrees, and I think this whole section of the book is about kind of peeling up the sort of self-criticisms that the characters have, like their own perceived weaknesses, and like bringing them to light and making them sort of confront them. So Amy, because she agrees with Josiah, like fully gives in and is like, you know what, this chair is the right answer.
Yeah, it does seem to happen very quickly, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was like some weird time distortion happening a little bit. But also she is not only strapped down in like the normal way you might get strapped down, but like every part of her is strapped down and she can't breathe and like she can't speak or do anything.
Mm-hmm.
She's basically like losing oxygen while she's sitting in this chair.
She says she can feel the blood restriction, and Josiah says like it's supposed to restrict blood flow to the brain to like reduce resistance, right? So there's a whole physical response happening in accordance with this, and I can imagine that would make things feel really long. I remember reading it too and thinking this is probably only taking place over a few minutes, and I think even if you look back at it, like it can't be more than like an hour really, just because of how time passes in the night that she's in this chair, but it feels like she's been there forever.
Yeah. And then obviously there's the parts like you think it's impossible for you to get saved in this situation. Like Amy still to this point is kind of like, even when she's traveling with the group, it's still like we're all on our own here. She holds that mentality for quite a long while. So sitting in this chair, it's like, yeah, nobody is going to come save me, so I might as well just accept it. Mm-hmm. Like the last bit of her kind of falling into capitalism, I'm assuming is what we're doing here. Like when you finally just give up on the dream of doing something more, right?
Yeah, she's like accepting like I can't become more, like this is all I am. Like that's kind of the vibe of her thought process around this.
Mm-hmm.
I also was wondering if you had any thoughts on if Josiah, being kind of an undead spirit type, had any magical or mystical powers, and this is also related to how quickly she falls into it. And I'll bring Trinity in on this as well when we see her doing the treadmill. Like she also has pretty quickly fallen into the mindset of like, no, like I need to do this. Like I am bad. This will cure me. Like, is there something sort of magically entrancing about what Josiah is saying to the characters that would explain like how hard they fall into it? Or is it like physical alone?
Yeah, it's like kind of twofold. I think it could purely be like physical, mental torture, right? Like what he's doing is how you got people to admit to crimes they didn't commit, right? Like this is how witches were burned, by the way. They were tortured. So I think some of that like torture and like the kind of trancey language, like the repetition, like you just kind of want to accept it because you want the pain to stop, basically. So it could be completely, like, normal what's happening here. I do think there's a little bit of magic, though, because him killing all of the prisoners, but making this possible to happen, I don't know. It feels a little bit ritualistic. It feels a little bit magical. It feels a little bit devilish?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can understand those vibes as well.
Yeah, at the least, right? He's managed to do something mystical by making this happen, period. That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that sticks out to me in this scene with Amy specifically is when Basil comes to get her. Like the rip back into reality is kind of weird. Like it's not pleasant. He comes in and is trying to like free her from the chair, and it's like a good manager always carries a pocket blade, which is like one of those barf lines that Basil has to like remind you of how like his angle, like his Orsk juice angle.
Mm-hmm.
So to the point where when Amy comes out, like she was probably going to feel this anyway, right? Where she's like, no, like put me back in the chair. Like I had already decided to give in. But when you come out and like reality is just Basil, the manager, like saying platitudes about managering, like it's also a horror of a different type. Like it's still bad. It's just not torture.
That's very funny to say that, I think. Yeah, I get what you mean. Because it's like, I think part of the realization of this book is even when you're saved, you're not really saved. As sad as that is, like, we just exist in a system that perpetuates. And you might move on to something better, but it's still never going to be, like, the best, basically. So, like, Basil is the better of two options. He's good, even. We'll take him.
Yes.
But, like... But you're still, like, feeding into capitalism regardless, I guess, might be the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only, like, positive I can say is, like, her being numb in this instance and then feeling the pain of, like, the pins and needles when she's moving again is probably the closest, like, metaphor, I guess, to being alive. Like, not even just being alive, but, like, being happily alive, I guess, is it's going to be painful, but it's better than feeling nothing, right? So...
that's an interesting point, because throughout the rest of the story, she uses pain as her way of like bringing herself back to reality and like waking up, right? She's got like a missing nail that she keeps pressing to like be like, no, go, like keep going. Like that's the willpower.
Yeah. Which is like crazy. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But I guess in this circumstance where you're not sure what's reality, it's a good reminder that you're alive.
Yeah. Well, before she's using pain to bring her back to reality, the smell of the bodies of the zombies brings her back, and she's like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be attached to a chair. And that's able to like get her going again. When this happens, importantly though, the zombies are present, they're not gone, and so Basil's like, I'm gonna go do something about it because I need to protect Amy. So he like steps out and like, I don't remember what he says, so it's something stupid again, but like they attack him as a result. And I emphasize this because I thought he died here. Like I was like, oh, we were wrong. Like he died. They just beat him. And it took like a while before Amy was like, I still think he's in there, where I was like, oh, thank God. Like he's alive.
Yeah, it was, I feel like they were beating him for a long time. And it's like
she
described.
said it was a long time. Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy. I genuinely also thought he was dead as hell.
Yeah. I do think he is removed from the story. Maybe that's like too active of a term, but I feel like he's removed from the story by the author to kind of replace him with Josiah, right? And Josiah will later say like, I felt like Basil was insufficient, so I did replace him, right? Like that's the function he has. But I think it's really to emphasize that parallel between the prison warden and manager position, right? Like it's making the metaphor really direct, to have Josiah like now in charge of not only the prisoners but all of Basil's employees.
Yeah, I could see that, because like Basil saving Amy from the chair would obviously be a failing, right? Like that's not what he's supposed to do according to Josiah. So I wonder, like you did mention last time that Basil maybe wasn't present for the seance because there was nothing about him to fix.
Right.
And I wonder if that was true to a certain point. Like,
oh, like until he saves Amy.
Right, until he decides to save Amy, because then it's obviously the wrong thing to do, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, honestly, because I kind of just thought I was wrong about that theory, but I'll take it because now it's supporting it. Yeah, I could see that, right? Where like he hasn't bothered Basil up until this point. Like the fact that Basil is not trapped in some way and can come over here and save Amy might mean that he was not bothered by Josiah up until this point.
Yeah.
I like it. So we get one more round of information on Trinity and Matt. I mentioned Trinity is found on the treadmill. She's kind of spewing the same brainwash stuff that Amy was when she was getting saved by Basil, but she's a little more committed to the bit and is able to run off after being saved and presumably go back to it. This is also when we get the phone call from Matt, and I find everything about Matt's character frustrating, but this is especially frustrating because Amy's like out here saying, I have Trinity physically with me, and it's like Amy is saying nothing. It's like Matt is speaking to an empty phone line. Like he's just like, I've got to save Trinity, unable to like have any normal thoughts at all. So this is another moment where I'm like, is this Matt alone, or is this like the magic convincing of either Josiah or the store, which is kind of talked about as its own entity too? But whatever the case is, he's unable to come to light.
Yeah, it's just obviously whatever is happening is very convincing. Like Amy thinks she hears Ruth Ann later, and I feel like only ignores it because she's realized it's probably fake, and even if it's not, there's nothing she can do. She has that level of like giving up going on at the same time, but Matt is like so invested in Trinity. And also we know from like the distorting rooms and the cameras that he's not really taking this place seriously.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still not taking it seriously.
I guess so. He did the whole punch the wall situation in the hallway, which I thought woke him up a little bit.
That was a crazy thing for him to do, by the way. But if he's like running around, then he hasn't been grabbed. He hasn't been like forced to work in any situation. That's my assumption anyway, so.
Yeah, I think I want to bring Ruth Ann into this conversation because I think both Matt and Ruth Ann had very different experiences from Amy and Trinity, where they're not being put on a machine to work, even though I think he says he would do that in the seance. Matt is chasing Trinity around, and it seems like it's probably an apparition if we're to assume that Amy has the real Trinity. I guess that could be a fake person too, but like I think it's Matt who's under that. And then Ruth Ann is like subject to the creepy crawlies, right? So she's still not on a machine. She's experiencing something, I want to say magically, but like naturally horrific, right? Like something that's not a man-made machine. And so are these things provided then by the store itself? Are these things that Josiah is able to imagine up and make real? Like, are these their cures, or are these just ways to kill them? Like, does Josiah not have any investment in them at all?
Well, I think Ruth Ann was like a lost cause, wasn't she?
Yeah, I kind of thought that was the implication for her. It was just like she's too old. She's been doing this for too long. Like, there's nothing about it that can be fixed.
Right. So I think for Matt, I think because there was a set up job for him, they're trying to lead him to it. It would be my assumption of what they're doing with him.
That's possible, but why not just send like the zombie army after him?
Well, I don't know. The zombie army isn't like, it doesn't always work because Amy's able to evade them pretty well.
True.
Regardless, all of this is like an impossible conversation because we don't see any of what he's going through.
Yeah. It is all speculation. I'm really just trying to figure out, like, I think the core of this question is the store kind of a villain too, with its own brain, if you will, its own mind.
Oh, I feel like the store is just like a part of the Beehive. Like, it's just a new iteration of it. I think they're the same thing.
Yeah, and I guess that gives it, it's just a weird space where like the store is never like fully like acknowledged as its own thing, and like why would the Beehive have the ability to do these things, like spin them around? And yeah, I think it all just comes from Josiah at its core, really. Like, he's the one who's caused all of the mystical stuff to happen, and because he did that, like, the store is able to do this stuff. So it's really just an extension of him.
Yeah, I think the answer you're looking for is there's some weird-ass magic that doesn't get explained.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, I'll be satisfied with that. So yeah, you mentioned Amy briefly does actually escape the building, and she decides to go back. I did think it was wild of her to leave hearing Ruth Ann's scream, because in that moment I was like, that was the first moment where I was like, maybe you should stay back. But then she does. She goes back anyway. She goes to the break room and finds what I thought was an interesting paper of an evaluation of the Panopticon that points out like no actual work is being done, both like on the healing front and the actual work front. They were like, he's in here making them turn hand cranks 10,000 times. Like, what good is that doing? Which will, set up the fact that they're going to close it and Josiah's going to go nuts on that. But I thought that was an interesting thing to bring up, is kind of meaningless work and endless work being ineffective.
Right. It's also, I think, important to note that in that same thing, I think it also says that Josiah not only had them do this, but he enjoyed having them do this.
Yeah.
He reveled in that torture.
Yeah, Josiah's interesting because he definitely does revel in the torture, but I still I think he believes himself still. Like, I don't even think it's just for the torture. I really do think he believes the whole, like, toil makes you better situation. So it's bizarre. Like, he's weird,
Yeah, I don't think that's surprising. There's kind of like an arrogance to it. Like, obviously you've put yourself in a position of power and you think you're holy, basically, godly, for having people do these things. And all of these criminals are just kind of like rats to you, right? Or they're worker bees, or they're whatever you want them to be.
Yeah, I mean, he must think he's a genius for this, so the way he talks about it especially.
Yeah.
There's not much more to say about Ruth Ann. We've mentioned her a couple of times. It was wild that she gouged her own eyes out in her whole, like, I don't want to see the creepy crawlies and, like, I'm accepting death situation. Also just like depressing and gory to watch.
The interesting thing about what she did, I guess, is she had literally dug through the wall and her fingers were to the bone, right? She worked herself to the bone, I'm assuming is what's happening here. And it's just, yeah, she's worked all of these years at this dead-end job, basically. Never seemed to get a pay raise. And now she's just dead because of it.
Yeah, we mentioned the whole, she was kind of the lost cause one earlier. She really was outside of Basil, like the deepest in on Orsk, right? Because she depended on it. We talked about this first episode. She depended on it. She didn't have her own friends. She saw her coworkers as her family. Like, I think she dies here because there really wasn't a way out of that for her. Like, it was too late for her to like, which I don't really believe this, but I think the point of putting it this way is that she was too late to like make her own life her own.
Yeah, and there's a certain willingness in that decision as well. Like, she accepts it, right? She's not willing to fight for anything else.
Exactly, yeah.
Which, obviously, this is like a hyper exaggerated situation, but
yeah, no, like in reality, right? Like, first of all, like no one is in that deep that they can't take their life into their own hands. So, like, it is really just like taking it to the extreme.
Right. She was out quick though. I expected a little bit more.
I did feel for her though, and like Amy says a few words too of like basically she was a real one. Like, she was out here for us. And I was like, man, she was. Like, it's kind of sad.
Yeah. And she said, like, she was the best of them, which just shows, like, being nice in these kind of settings, it doesn't get you anywhere, right? Like,
right.
You have to kind of fight for yourself and put yourself first if you want, like, a better situation, basically. Even just on, like, the promotion type of side of things, right? And you're going to piss people off and people are going to hate you and blah, 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 blah. But, like, yeah, just being kind means you're just stuck.
Yeah. It's rough though, because like on the other end, like I see so many people in middle to upper management levels being kind of the other direction, right? Like either being mean or like just not being very human or like easy to relate to or wanting to be related to. And I often find that to be unnecessary, right? Like I think there's a balance here where people think because those things don't really get you anywhere that you have to be in the other direction. Like I think there's plenty of ways to be sort of motivated for work, if you will, that don't push your subordinates away from you, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's everything before Amy goes back into the beehive. And I think this is specifically to save Basil. She finds him in this horrific heavy iron cap thing that we get a nice little drawing of at the beginning of one of the chapters. It's crazy. And they start making their way out. I think it's important that Amy tells Basil they'll have to block out the store to make it out because that is so against his nature. And this is, I think, just another metaphor of like, we have to fight against the capitalism, right? Like fight against the store structure that Basil is just so not prepared for, to the point where like his first words when he like starts regaining the ability to speak are shop responsible, because he's trying to tell Amy that she's shop responsible. So he's just like so ill prepared for this. Like Amy really has to lead the way.
Yeah, to a certain point. I think later it's Amy that wants to still try and find Matt and Trinity, and it's Basil that's like, we need to leave. Because Amy is basically like, she's had the revelation, I need to save these people, and now she's kind of going 100%, and Basil's kind of the one to be like, we're literally going to die in here, we need to leave, and then we can help them.
Which is fair, because like the water is rising and such, right? There's imminent danger to them. Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. There is kind of a flip back.
Yeah, so he's not completely lost in the weeds here. He's figuring things out.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. I feel like he's the least affected by his torture. And I think he's maybe got the biggest insecurity of all of them, of like not being a good manager. Like I think that affects him and motivates his actions so deeply.
Yeah. That's so silly, though. I don't know.
I agree.
Saying that out loud is so silly.
I think if we want to bring it to reality a little bit, he's motivated really by his sister, right? Like he wants to be successful in his work to gain job security and an income at which he can comfortably support his and his sister's lives. So like it's coming from reality, but it feels silly because of the way he behaves and like how in the system it is.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it just feels like insufficient isn't the right word, but like a little bit glossed over maybe, because we're not really in his head. Like Amy, we got the whole breakdown of what the chair did to her, but if we looked at it kind of third party, she really wasn't sitting there for that long, to be fair, right? So like I think something this book does is it does kind of gloss over those things a little bit, and maybe that's just like adrenaline keeping them going, but like yeah, there's not really time to sit on it, but we don't get insight, so it feels a little bit hollow, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, speaking of silly things related to Basil, he tells Amy that he brought her in that night to find out why she was so popular, which I just can't believe is a motivation for Basil based on any of his other behavior. Like, this is a part of the book where I was like, have we gone too silly?
Oh my gosh. I actually didn't think it was that silly at all, surprisingly. Yeah. I think it's because he's like worked the structure the way it's supposed to be worked, but there is just something about people who have natural charisma that you will never be able to emulate, right?
Yeah.
And we see that with Amy when she's leading like the new hires or whatever. She has something, right? Like she has something that you can't be taught that kind of stuff.
Right.
So she doesn't put in the effort. She's, thinks she's getting fired every day. She's a mess of a human, but people like her. Like, why does that happen?
Yeah.
And that's like, sadly, part of success within this kind of system is being like Amy, right? Like just being able to kind of rock up to a room and have people fall in love with you and like know how to say the right things to make an impact,
That's a good point. That just kind of makes it sad again.
It does.
Like for Basil. He's like, this is all I want. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. And maybe he does see that as what you're saying, almost like a path to success, right? If he's trying to be successful in the workplace and move up, like he probably sees that as what's missing within himself. And that's why he's written all these things about, like, I think Amy's got management potential. So it makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, just like on a human level, like, I do think Basil wants to know his employees a bit, so it would make sense he wants to know Amy, especially if Amy is so antagonistic towards him. Like, what about their relationship is not clicking might also be something going through his head.
That's a good point. I think he's struggling to find the balance between, like, being in sort of an enforcer role, right? Being a supervisor and being personable, almost like what I was just talking about, like finding what is the right amount of each to do. And he's come from such an angle of like working up the ladder and following the rules that he doesn't really know the other part.
Yeah.
Well, they get out of the beehive. It floods the entire showroom. They have one more run-in with Josiah that kind of explains what all this water is about, in that when he does get shut down, he decides he's going to drown everyone so that way they could come back later on to continue on his work. He continues to emphasize his whole toil brings health thing here. But this is where it's like, oh, like he really did intentionally do this, right? Like it's no accident that these spirits have risen just because this Orsk store has been built on top of it. Like this was kind of always his intention.
Yeah, and this is the bit that's like kind of ritualistic, right? Because he's like sacrificing all of these people. He's even putting some of them in coffins so that they can't escape. And somehow what he's wanted has worked. Like he's done some kind of magic, some kind of deal with the devil to like maintain this place.
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder if the reason that the Orsk is there is because this was there, right? Like almost like the people at Orsk were drawn to this location sort of implicitly because of the energy of Josiah and the Panopticon that was lingering about, or if it's just like by chance, like the Orsk store happened to be there and that like sort of sealed the deal for Josiah.
Yeah, it could be like a drawing in like situation, because it was obviously real estate for a very long time, but why did Orsk decide to take it?
I'm tempted to believe that Josiah's pull is pretty strong and that he's like had an implicit sort of magical effect strong enough and long enough that I think it's possible he pulled them in.
I could believe that considering like the whole police situation that happens.
Yeah,
like
that's what I was thinking of too.
Yeah, if he can do stuff like that, there's a lot, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So in this sort of telling of Josiah's past, Amy decides she can free the zombies by reminding them that none of this is real and that they are long dead, and so this stuff doesn't matter anymore, which like kind of works. They do destroy Josiah, but then like they get right back to it with Amy and Basil and put them into coffins.
Yeah, I think it's just like you fall back into what's comfortable even when it's like the bad shit, right?
Yeah, Amy says like they don't know anything else. So this is what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, right? It is just trying to emphasize that like return to status quo. Like I'm just like, why do something else if that's what you know? So it's kind of sad, but it makes sense in the metaphor.
Yeah, you're also like trapped, right? Like what where they can't really go anywhere, right?
Yeah, so they're not truly free, right? Like if they go out into the world, so it's not going to work out for them.
Yeah, we don't really know like what kind of ghost situation we're dealing with here. Is there a moving on process for them? Like, how do we cleanse this place from anything?
That's a good point.
And what did happen to Josiah? Like, did they actually just like kill his ghost, or like what's the deal here? You know?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, like they did everything they did to Basil, and he survived. So who knows? Like Josiah is probably got more staying power than Basil does. So we're just about moving into the end material here. Amy is able to free herself with her Orsk magic tool, as we mentioned, of course. It all comes back to Orsk, I suppose. In some way, it's like the Orsk device is both what trapped her and freed her, which is so like silly. I guess that's like what the whole book is, right? Is like going through this experience both like got her stuck in this and like freed her mind from like the simple process of just like, I don't know, just like sticking with like, I'm going to be a retail worker for the rest of my life. Like she kind of does go back to do that, but with more a wider mindset around it of like why she's doing it.
Yeah, it's like as you mentioned with the people, like the whole balance thing, right? Like you can use the job and the job can help you, but like, girl, you need some hobbies. Most people working in this day and age, well, first of all, they need higher pay, but also they need some hobbies.
They need hobbies. I fully agree with you.
Yeah, it's the whole like, you're not living to work, you're working to live.
Exactly.
I feel like you've probably said that before. We've said that probably before.
I'm sure it's come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the cops are finally able to make it, and you kind of alluded this before. I think it's because Josiah's gone. Like, I think he was the only thing keeping them out of there. Because otherwise, why then, you know? Mm-hmm. We see a text message from Matt saying help, which alludes back to the beginning of the book. We saw these help messages coming from mysterious numbers, and I think those numbers are implied to not be Matt's because Amy knew the phone number for the phone number. Like, it didn't say Matt. It was on someone else's phone. She was like, that's Matt's number. So it implies to me that the help at the beginning came from other numbers, but it doesn't necessarily imply to me that those weren't like Matt's outside of time.
Yeah, I think the implication could also be made that there are other people trapped in the beehive.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Because it's a cell phone, right? Like it's a text message. I don't expect that help message is coming from the zombies. So if it is coming from a human, I kind of just thought it was a weird way of it being Matt coming from other numbers, but I could see that too.
Yeah, I mean, that makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, there's like, since there's nothing in that spot between the prison and Orsk, it still makes me think there's like an outside of time thing happening.
Yeah, I think there is definitely some weird time stuff happening for sure.
Yeah. There's some fun interactions with the actual store manager because Basil's like deputy or something like that. Pat, like when he comes to the site, it really seems like he actually is like concerned for the people that were in the store. Like he had me good, but of course, like he is just a representative of the company, and of course, like anyone would be shocked by what's going on here. So to assume that he's shocked because he's worried about people's lives was an assumption on my part. He's really just worried about face. So Amy and Basil get offered corporate jobs to not talk, which is funny because neither of them takes it, and I also don't think they talk. Like they still don't say anything to media as far as I know. They'd probably sound crazy.
Well, yeah, it's like an impossible situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Pat also is like implying it felt a little gaslighty at first, but I think he was really just like trying to force and imply that they should not act like Matt and Trinity were there that night because it's not like quote their responsibility. And I think really the angle here is like he says Matt and Trinity weren't on the clock, right? Like and they weren't supposed to be there, but that doesn't make it not their responsibility that this happened in their store. But that's what they think. And like the root of it is they weren't there to either make them money or protect their assets like everyone else was, right? So like to them, it's like they're nothing.
Right. Yeah, and as few casualties as possible is really what they're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, this idea of responsibility gets brought up so much. We mentioned it with like Basil having to decide between Carl, I think, and Amy. Like, who are you responsible for? And like, we had trouble with Basil in the first half with him being responsible for these people, but only because it affected his image, right? And obviously Pat is doing the same thing here. And Amy has a little bit of this too. When she leaves, she's like, these aren't even my friends. Like, this is not my responsibility to go save these people. But like all of those kinds of conversations, it really did make me think. I think I mentioned this in the first part too, of The Good Place. I don't know if you've ever watched it.
I didn't finish it, but I did watch a decent amount of it. I think 2 seasons of it.
Crazy. You need to finish it.
I know.
Literally one of the best shows ever made.
Yeah. It's been in the back of my mind for a long time. I do want to go and finish it.
Yeah. But one of its big moral lessons, I guess, is like, what do we owe each other? Just as people, like just as regular people who like interact together, what do we owe each other? And isn't that the question of this entire time period that we're living in right now? Because people want to act like they don't owe each other anything. They want to be rude as hell. They have no empathy. And it's just like, but why? Like,
right.
If we're looking at it existentially, like, sure, we don't technically owe each other anything within the universe, but like, why can't we just be good to each other? Why can't some of my money go to help people in need? Because that's what they need. Like, right. We should be kind. Is my main takeaway.
No, I agree with
life.
you. This is something I pushed heavily back when I was teaching, of like kindness begets kindness, right? Like there's like more, it is a self-fulfilling cycle, and so why not? And yeah, that is like what they have to confront, Amy especially, with that decision. We are very much an individualistic society these days, like, and you're right, like I agree with you totally. We technically don't owe anyone anything, but like it's still, I'm so glad that Amy goes back and decides to do something, right? Like she still has that like human empathy in her. And like this is to say, like I think a lot of people are like, well, there's no such thing as like altruism, like there's really no like version of just like helping others that doesn't help yourself. I'm like, great, so go help yourself. Like go help someone else to feel better about yourself, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, capitalism doesn't lend to that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, and it really doesn't. Like to kind of abstract it away from Pat himself, like what gain would there have been for him to take credit, right, for Matt and Trinity being in the store and being like, this was our fault? Like that in fact would have just dug them deeper in the hole. It would have been the right thing to do, but there is actually no incentive in the capitalist structure to do that. Right,
and even their treatment towards Amy and Basil isn't any sort of kindness, right? Like they're being paid hush money. They're getting a shitty severance.
Yeah.
There's no follow-up in regards to how they're doing. There's no like therapy for how they're doing. Like they're not taken care of at all. And we see
I think
how
Amy
much
refused therapy, but
Oh, did she?
Yeah. So I think it was an option, but otherwise I agree, yes.
Okay. What a tough situation, though, because, like, okay, they are given therapy, but, like, how do you literally talk about this situation
I know.
In a meaningful way?
I understand why she rejected it, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no good answer to this. But yeah, but the point of what you're saying is still correct, though, right? Like, the support is limited, and again, just for face, just enough to, like, say they did, right?
Yeah. And then also, like, we see people that are supposed to be close with Amy also not treating her well. Like, her friends all want gossip and they want to know what happened, but like, obviously this is traumatic for her. Why would she ever talk about it? And so she's feeling very isolated. And then she's taken in by her family, but like, taken in is a stretch.
Yeah, there's like implied terms.
Yeah, like she's obviously in a depressive spiral. She won't leave her bed, like all of that kind of stuff. She won't get another job. She's kind of just existing through time for months, really. And at first I was like, okay, her family is, surprisingly there for her. Her stepdad picks her up from the hospital, all of this stuff.
He like covers her remaining rent too. Like that's part of what made this especially jarring.
Yeah. And then like to have, I think it's him speaking on his and the mom's behalf, if I remember correctly, to basically be like, you need to go find a job to help with rent, like you should be paying us. I was like, oh my god, I would kill them, I think.
Yeah, it was the worst. Yeah, it was particularly when she says she has the job. He's like, oh good, because you need to pay us rent. It's like the moment, like there's so many layers to this, right? Like one is like, this is predatory because Amy is like in a bad state. Like this is we get mad at businesses for doing this, right? Like being predatory against someone who does not have an income or has a low income and saying, well, we'll help you out, we'll give you money, and then like putting terms on it that are like like restricting, right? That make it really hard for you to meet them, right? So in this case, and kind of to my second point, like Amy is now finally just getting a job back, and the first thing that happens is her salary is getting restricted, right? Because now she has to pay this rent. So it's both coming from the angle of predatory of the parents to do that, and makes it more difficult for Amy to get somewhere in the world, because it's true, like once you start once you have a job, your expenses go up. It's like bizarre. Like I haven't been working for the past 2 months, and I've been traveling, and I feel like my expenses have gone down. It's like crazy how this goes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like where it's the system is set up for you to feel like you're doing better, and somehow it's like getting harder. And so that's what Amy is experiencing here.
Yeah, and it's just, you think about how she described her childhood before. Like, her mom clearly has never really been there for her. So it's just, like, exceedingly isolating that it feels like she can't just take a moment to breathe. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't know if she deals with this in the best way possible. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, I think with where we're about to go next, like this is going to motivate her, and maybe not in the most positive way, even though I'm not against what she does.
Yeah.
So she does get that job at Planet Baby, which is another large big box store in that style of an IKEA, and is in the same location as the Orsk. Her motivation is not to get a job. It is to go back and get Matt and Trinity, who she knows are still trapped there, right? They're never found. The bodies are never found. And so she assumes they're still in the beehive. Matt sent that help text. She's probably right. So that's her motivation for going back to getting the job. She's like super in the zone about it, which we see too when she like runs into Basil, who's actually there to do the same thing. But she's like so like on the mindset of like, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to like go save their lives. Like fuck everyone who's like falling into the typical capitalist structure. Like she kind of pushes Basil off at first. It doesn't really seem like she's healthily addressed her feelings about all of this. She's still the same Amy that we left off with.
Yeah, it's difficult because it's like activism, right? Like she's doing the right thing, but there's something about it that just doesn't feel quite right.
I think the thing is we want more for Amy, right? Like especially with the way she starts this story and some of the realizations she's had throughout. It's like you want her to like be happy and doing things for herself, but in leaning into saving Matt and Trinity and going to this job to do so, like she's kind of just still sitting in depression, right? Like she's so worried about Matt and Trinity for presumably all this time, and like to the point where this is what she's doing next. Like you don't get the sense she's doing better or that she will until this is resolved, and we don't have a resolution to this, so we don't ever see Amy do better. Like we don't and we don't see Amy decide what better is for herself. Like there's no addressing of it at all.
Yeah, I guess that's, yeah. I guess it's also because, like, to your point, the resolution, this isn't really a plan, I guess, is what is upsetting about it. Like, she's running into danger to do this good thing, but like, and she's prepared, at least she's prepared, but this still doesn't feel like a solution, right? Like, how do you stop something like the beehive? Like, she kind of just jumped out of bed one day, got this job, and is running straight into it. Mm-hmm. Basil at least has seemed a bit more careful. Like, he's been there for a bit. He's been scoping it out. But even him, it's like, how do you face something this impossible? I guess that's why I get, like, the hopeless feeling from this book, because it's like, if the beehive is supposed to be capitalism, you don't really stop it, right? You don't save people from it. You kind of just put yourself back into it.
Yeah, which is maybe why it doesn't have more of a solid ending. I think because we speculated a bit at the beginning of would this be an overcoming story, or like would this be a downfall story? And I think it did a good job of like landing in the middle.
Yeah, you had mentioned like some pretty depressing stuff with like a purgatory angle.
Yeah.
Which I think is the closest to what we got a little bit.
Yeah. I guess like we can imagine that if she saves Matt and Trinity, that could be the end of it, but like we can't know that.
Yeah, especially if like the help numbers are other people, right?
Right.
People are just gonna keep falling into the beehive.
Yeah.
Although maybe not now if Josiah's gone. I don't know.
Well, I have an additional thought about additional people in the beehive. So in the end material of this book, it switches to the Planet Baby stuff, which I think is very clever. And one thing I noticed on that large page is that the sale that they're advertising is an overnight sale from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., which means that there's going to be a bunch of customers in the store at the hours that this stuff usually happens.
Yeah.
So, like, are they going to come take all these customers in too? Like, this is going to turn into a whole event, you know?
Yeah, I also had that concern. I was like, oh, we're just, like, giving people to the Beehive.
Yeah, right. Another thing from the end material that I think is interesting as far as implications of the Beehive is someone is mentioned to have gone missing during an overnight event in North York, which is another store. Is the thought here that there's like another Beehive-like thing going on, or is that just something totally different?
Yeah, I wonder if the Beehive just moves then?
This kind of comes back to me for like to the thought of the energy of the Beehive, right? Of attracting the Orsk to that. It almost feels like the other direction of like Orsk attracting the energy of the Beehive.
Which could be possible if like the Beehive is without its warden. Maybe it's like trying to fill a gap.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, so I think that's basically everything. For reviews though, I can go first this time because I think mine's pretty succinct.
Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned, there was like kind of a tonal shift that I wasn't entirely about. There were a few lines that you brought up that reminded me there was some comedic moments, but like I was hoping it would lean in a bit more on that and like the ghost hunting aspect maybe a little bit more as well, but that all kind of falls away quite quickly. Overall though, like I get this book, I understand this book. I think it would be way more impactful if I didn't already like agree with this book, you know?
Right.
So I think for me it's probably just like a 4 out of 5. Like high, but like it didn't emotionally. The only part that like emotionally destroyed me a little bit was when the stepdad was like, "You should pay rent," and I was like,
my God,
"Oh, yeah."
All right, I can understand that. I think for me, I had a really good time reading, especially the first half of the book. Not that I didn't enjoy the second half, but I'll tell you the part that gets me about the second half. It was just kind of the gory stuff, right? Like Ruth Ann not having fingertips anymore, like various torture things, just talking about skin, not on a body. All those types of things just don't work for me super well. But that's not actually a criticism of the book. That's just the part of horror I don't like, despite being a horror person.
Mm-hmm.
So that made it a little hard to read, but overall, I still really enjoyed the book. I thought it made a great point. Yeah, not a shocking one to either of us, but I thought it was worth it. And I think, truthfully, I think I would recommend this to a lot of people. Like, I think I would tell a lot of people, please read this book. It does a good job of what it's doing, except that it is satirical, though, and then, like, get into it. Like, I think it was really fun. Visual language, right? Like, having the sort of IKEA style in the book, super cool. I liked the sort of front pages of the chapters, all that, like, very fun. So from multiple angles, I really did enjoy the book. I think I was wavering a little bit between 4.5 and 5, and I think I'm just going to stick with 4.5. And the main reason I'll give for that is we talked a little bit earlier about how we saw Amy's perspective of everything, which I think had a lot of value because we see Amy's arc and sort of confronting her own issues with capitalism. But we miss out on a lot, especially with Trinity and Matt, and there's some lost opportunities there. I kind of think this book, I have trouble saying this for sure, but I think it would have benefited from being in third person and like moving between characters or giving a more objective, I guess, view of what's happening to different characters so that they could have brought more perspectives into the story. So I'm not 100% committed to that because maybe it would have been worse, right? But like that's at least what I think might have helped.
Right. To be fair, it is third person.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, you mean like third person omniscient.
Yes. Following multiple people, not just Amy. Sorry, you're right.
That's okay. I forgive you. Yeah, I think I agree. We always like complain about books with multiple characters.
Like they're too spread too thin. Yeah.
Yeah. This book, though, definitely could have been longer, I guess I'll say. Like, it had the space.
Yes. Yeah.
And then for our good vibes, I think for me the good vibe might just be all of the like imagery and all of the extra content that kind of filled out the story in like a unique way. We mentioned this in the first part, but like horror does tend to do this where they'll like insert handwriting or they'll have special pages and like things like that. But I think this is like the ideal form of doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's distinct from those, like from other types of this.
Yeah, for sure. And like the way the furniture descriptions kind of altered with the book, there was like that kind of uncanny wrongness of it, like seeing those things. Like, I don't know, the tone with that kind of fit with what was happening with the book. Like something was strange, something was going on, that kind of stuff. So I think energy-wise, the images were used very well.
Yeah, I totally agree. It kind of makes going back to the beginning images where they're just normal furniture a little bit spookier, of like, okay, like this, it almost makes you think about marketing as spooky, which, by the way, marketing is spooky.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking about it, right, you see these images and you're like, wow, they're like still talking about these torture devices like they're cute furniture for the house. Like, you're like, ugh, creepy, you know? That's the vibe I think you're supposed to get. So I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're generally supposed to have different good vibes, but I'm actually just going to say the same thing in that I think the furniture, and particularly at the beginning of the chapter, is just like super cool. And like if you were just to take out all of the furniture images and put them in a row, which actually it does at the epilogue, it's like kind of comical to see the escalation from normal furniture to torture devices. And I think especially with the descriptions, you'd be like, wow, this is wild and kind of silly and dark, which I just love that combination of things. So
yeah, so double good vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like in a book like this, the images are just kind of stand out.
Yeah. I think also just, you know, we're in an age where finding a book to read is hard. So if you can really nail the visual language to get someone into your book, like kudos to you.
Mm-hmm.
We do, in fact, judge books by covers, so
for sure, me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of beautiful covers, we can talk about our next book.
Heck yeah.
We are going back to science fiction, probably actually the most science fiction we've ever done, because we're actually in space. We will be reading The Stardust Grail by Yume Kitase. And this book actually has parts, which is like perfect. So we're going to be reading up to, but not including part 3, The Visitor. So like I mentioned, we're in space. We're kind of doing a space heist, apparently. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if we've ever done a heist book either.
Yeah, I don't think so. We've done more. Yeah, we've been on the other end of like mysteries, but not a heist.
Yeah. I could say more, but I feel like that's all I need to say. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil anything. I'm excited to have a spacey book, because you're right, we haven't really done that. And I'm not sure I can remember a time I've read a spacey book, so it's time.
Yeah, we need to do more spacey books. But that's what we're doing next time. If you have your own thoughts and theories about Horrorstör or the Stardust Grail, there are comments. Socials are in the description. I'm forgetting everything as I'm speaking. There are comments on things. I don't know. There's ways.
Yeah, if you want to talk to us, you can.
Yeah, you'll find a way, I'm sure. And we'll see you next time, I guess.
Bye-bye.